Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, I guess. Obviously, I'm not Tom Glover again. So if you would all please silence your cell phones, and our Rotarian of the day is Anthony Green. He's going to come up and lead us in our prayer, pledge, and four-way test.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to come together today. Thank you for all the many blessings that you bestowed upon us each and every day of our lives. Thank you for the food that we receive so it can be for the nourishment of our bodies. And Lord, put your arms of protection around our brave men and women deployed here and overseas. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our four-way test. The first is it true? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, and fourth, and five.
Is it fun? Very good. All right, and as you sit down, please remember the cart fund buckets. Add your spare change in there, please. William is not here, is he? Do we know of any prayer requests besides Uvalde, Texas? Okay. Any community announcements? Nothing going on, camps. If you have a rising third, fourth, or fifth grader, we still have openings in Lockerly's camp that we do at Worley every summer in June, but the deadline to register for it is tomorrow, actually. So if you know of anyone interested, please see me after. All right, Greg, are we ready with visitors and raffles?
We have some visitors.
We do.
We have a visiting Rotarian from Macon joining us, Mark Taylor. Did I pronounce your name right? You did. Thank you. And Jack, if you'll introduce your guest.
I'm sure most of you know Father David Probst. Our children, my youngest and his youngest, went through month sales together, and that's how we got to become friends.
And Keith, will you?
Yes, I have my friend and son, Brandon. Brandon officially, after tomorrow night, will be a high school graduate.
He doesn't look anything like it.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Time to do our drawing. Aaron, would you do the honors? I'd ask Chloe to do it, but.
That could be tricky.
Okay. This is last three digits are 601, 601. 601.
Nice. Oh, it's the universal treat sign.
All right, Bobby, looking for the Queen of Hearts. And instead of the Queen, we got the Ten of Spades.
Bummer.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if there's no other announcements, Aaron, could you introduce our speaker, please?
So today I'd like to introduce Deborah Campbell. She's here from the Baldwin County Jail Dogs, and she's got her friend Chloe with her.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'll say in advance, I am not a public speaker, but I will do my best to share with you this program that has been such a blessing to many, not just the dogs. This program started in July of 2015 when a couple of wardens, assistant wardens at Riverbend Correctional Facility and Rehabilitation Center came to our shelter. And on a day that I wasn't normally there, in a place that I wouldn't normally be. So God was in this from the beginning and asked if we would like to partner with them for a dog program. Well, I just started jumping up and down and I said yes without asking anybody. And I was just a volunteer. Little did I know that God intended for me to do it. I will tell you, I grew up in a law enforcement family. I had a pretty hard heart toward incarcerated people. And I am living proof that you can teach an old dog new tricks. So when I designed this program, I mean, we really didn't have a plan. And so this has been developing over the last 7 years. We'll start our 8th year, July 5th. We have trained and adopted out 64 dogs. Every dog in our program comes from the Baldwin County Animal Shelter, and everyone is on the kill list for no good reason other than this community does not do a great job with spaying and neutering and safe containment, and consequently there are an awful lot of unwanted animals, and the number of animals coming in is always overwhelming. And so our program was started to try to help some of those dogs. Chloe, stay. Excuse me. This is one bad thing the inmates in her dorm have taught her: how to shake down a room for food. Now, Chloe's story is a little different because she's 10 years old. Chloe lived her life with an older gentleman, and she served as his emotional support animal. And he became pretty debilitated, and the family placed him in a nursing home, and they dumped her in the kill shelter. Nobody found it in their heart to step up. Well, Chloe has pretty severe separation anxiety. She was with her human 24/7, always. And so the shelter did its best to try to find a proper home for her. And everything was great in 2020. When everybody was home, she was great. Everything was fine. When people had to go back to school and work, she did her best to exit the house any way she could find to go find her people. So in desperation, they asked us if we would take her. And of course, I never say no. That's just not in my vocabulary when it comes to a dog in need. So the plan initially for Chloe was that we were going to try to work with her to help with her separation anxiety. Well, what we learned, I put her in the veterans dorm. We have a veterans dorm there, and there's some tremendous needs there, lots of PTSD, and just compounded by what got them there in the first place. And Chloe has this amazing empathy that she can go in a room and know exactly who needs her. And so I'm going to do my best not to blubber today, because when I look at how this program has blessed so many people, it's really humbling to be privileged to be a part of it. Sorry. Anyway, Chloe goes around and she is there when somebody needs her, and she knows exactly who it is. She knows what room they're in. And so I knew it was going to be very hard, if not impossible, to find a home for her. So I approached the warden and I asked him to hire her as the ESA support canine for the veterans dorm, and he was all over it. Warden Johnston was a big dog person. So Chloe is officially the ESA canine for our veterans dorm, and she does a fantastic job serving those veterans. And her handler in there is not a veteran. But the rest of the majority of inmates in that dorm are veterans. So her story was a little different. She will spend the rest of her life with us, and they adore her. We got about 75 guys in that dorm, and I don't think there's a one of them that doesn't love Chloe. She's kind of the rock star. So for her, when I designed the program originally, I will admit, all I cared about was the dogs, and I thought of the inmates as the tool. That has changed quite a bit, because I have found that where there's a pulse, there's hope. I even put that on the shirt. There is hope. And you can lose your humanity in prison. It's a tough, rough place. And these dogs help them rediscover their humanity and how to feel and how to properly express emotion without fear of recrimination. You can't show weakness in prison. But the dogs make things okay. It's okay to cry. When I took Billy last week to send him to Canada, his trainer was just sobbing, and the other guys were all comforting him. You know, that's something, you know, to be able to feel and experience empathy or sympathy for another human being, because many of them are there because they didn't have that skill. It also teaches them selflessness. Most of these guys in prison are there because they're selfish. And these dogs change that for them, that there's something more important than them that they need to take care of. And it has changed people. The recidivism rate for trainers in this program is only 1 in 7 years that's gotten out has returned to prison. And, you know, part of that problem, I think, as I look through these things is these guys, when they get out of prison, it's real important that for things like drugs and trafficking and stuff where it was a lifestyle and not a single event, it's important that they parole out somewhere else. And when they end up back where they came from, they're going to be doing exactly what they did. And that's exactly what happened to Mr. Peterson. And he was a great trainer, really did well, never got in trouble, did a great job in the TC for the year he was there. He had a job, he had a place to rent, but things didn't work out. And he ended up back in Atlanta, right back into the sewer that he came from, and he's back in prison again. And it's such a terrible cycle. It's hard for these guys to get a chance when they get out of prison. It is hard. So, you know, what I try to treat, you know, these guys, I interview these guys, they get, you know, they get checked by the facility. There are certain things I won't allow. Cruelty to animals, cruelty to children, I'm not interested. You know, anybody that would dominate and hurt a weaker being, I don't want them in my program. But other than that, I am open to giving anybody a chance. I will interview these guys and I'll make a decision. They have to study material that I give them. They get a test to make sure that they're truly involved, that they care enough that they really want to study and pass a test, that they can actually read material and articulate answers back. That's important. Their commitment. And then they can never have a DR. If you get a discipline report, you're out. So we expect exemplary behavior, and the bar is raised when you're in this program. What they get in return is they get a private cell. That is gold, to be able to have a private cell. That's one thing I insisted on, because I'm not going to have my dogs in a cell with Joe Schmo inmate, you know, that might come out. We had that once, and one of the guys that they had in there wasn't a trainer. He was hiding his drugs in the dog food. So, you know, that's when we stopped that. And so these guys do get that, and that's really nice. So it's just them and their dog in a cell, and the dogs live with them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I go out on weekdays and teach them how to train the dogs in basic obedience. We do, of course, house training, crate training, and all of the basic obedience cues. And then when the dog graduates, it's usually 12 weeks, maybe 16, depends on the dog. Then we put the dogs up for adoption. And I'm going to try to operate this, Aaron, and see if I can do this. Well, I hit an arrow. Evidently, it wasn't the magic one. I am not a computer literate person. Let's just, I confess that. Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Okay. Well, they're not in any particular order. This is Boomer. He is now called Z-Boom. This is his new mom. He was in our program. He was actually a wild man. He had a bird fetish. Now he has a Florida lizard fetish because he's living in Florida. But it was a perfect dog. This dog was the spitting image of their prior dog, who had passed away from cancer just a month earlier. And she was despondent. She has to have a dog. She's a dog person. And she just got led to Pet Finder and saw him, and he looks like their dog. He acts like their dog. It's the only thing is he has all of his legs, and Oliver lost a leg to cancer. But anyway, this was a huge blessing for this family because she was really grieving. This is Chloe's collage. I try to make these little collages for her. She is so special. But this was the team at that time up at the top there. We visited Putnam High School a couple, 2-3 months ago, I guess, and visited a class there, and she got to spend some time with the kids there. They were fantastic. And this is Mr. Bell down at the bottom. That's her handler. That's her main handler. As you can imagine, this was in 2020 that these pictures got taken with the masks on. I don't get to get pictures as often as I would like. It's very rigid. And So I have to take what I can get. This is Oakley. He's adopted. He was running loose with Boomer in town when we got them. The family wasn't taking care of them. So Oakley has not found his home yet. And this is his handler, Mr. Gosden. This is Rico. This was Billy's buddy, the one that just went to Canada. Rico is also 8 years old. He's awesome. At some point, I'm taking him home with me because I love this dog. He's the best dog in the whole program, temperament wise and just the sweetest thing. And his handler, Mr. Williams. Then we've got Miss Darla. She's a very sweet girl. Mr. Hahn is a veteran. She lives in the veterans dorm with Chloe. And he has kind of fallen in love with her, as you can see. It's pretty tender. She's a sweet dog. And then we have Sissy. The Mr. Tate is her handler, and she is also available for adoption. And then Miss Trixie, she started off with Mr. Tate, and then we moved her across the compound, and she's been with Mr. Hahn for some additional training. And this is Polly. She got adopted by her pretty mom, and Polly, you can see, is doing very well. This is Maya and her new family. She's a happy girl. And this is Kylie and her family. Now, Kylie's story was really remarkable. She was with us several years ago, graduated, was adopted by a family. It seemed real responsible. Sometimes you just don't know. And after 2 years, they sent her back because we got a new house and we don't want her to have access to the house. We got new furniture. We don't want her on the furniture anymore. I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. The kids are older now. We travel more. She doesn't board well. And baby number 4 is on the way and we just don't have time for her anymore. Seriously. This man was a physician. It just goes to show you that intelligence doesn't mean kindness. So they dumped her back and she was a broken dog. She was a broken dog. And I put her in there and we got her squared away, and she has this wonderful family now, and she will be there for life. Paula adores this dog. And then this is his name now is Koa Palani because his daddy's Hawaiian. His name was Corduroy in our program. I don't think I need to say anything else. And this is Casper with his mom and dad and their friend. Dad was a professional hockey player for the Macon Mayhem, yeah. At the time, he is retired now because he got tired of getting beat up, and now he works for the Chinese girls Olympic gymnast team. He's a coach there, something like that. And then this is Latte is the big girl. Her new name is Penny, and then the one in front is Leon, her little brother now, and the one in the back was Willa. She's passed away. She was very old, but guess who the boss is? The little one. And there's Storm and his new dad up in Atlanta. And this was the training team a little while back. A couple of them are no longer there. Mr. Clark is getting ready to leave. So he's going to be getting on his journey to home. You have that picture. This is Bonnie, and she got adopted by a really sweet family up in Roswell. And the one on the left is Cole. He was ours, and that's his new brother up in Pennsylvania. He got adopted up there. And there's Willow with her little buddy Bella, who has since passed away of old age. And there's Milo and his dad down in Tallahassee, Florida. I travel great distances. I personally transport every dog to their new home. Make sure. This is Logan and his dad. And these are just some of our training teams through the years. You'll notice this gentleman, the older guy, is Mr. Young. And I'm going to tell you his story because if there's a shining example of how this program can help somebody, it's this man. Mr. Young went to prison at age 18 with a life sentence, and he did 44 years. He went in at 18. He got out just last year at 62. He's one of the best trainers I've ever had, the most compassionate, kind, appreciative person I've ever known. It's just amazing. If you look at the back, not everybody in prison gets perfect justice. Let me just say it that way. Not everybody, but good guy. He got parole. He He had been, of course, separated from family. The Lord did a work here, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this. I know this is not a religious organization, but you have to know God's hand is in all of this. When he went to prison, the family, of course, disowned him. The kids were small at the time. The kids grew up. The son never did forgive. But when he went to the transitional center, you're only supposed to be a year in a TC. And the year passed and another 6 months passed, and we couldn't figure out what was. I kept telling him, because I'm kind of Mama Deb to everybody. So he's contacting me. And I said, just be patient. God's doing something. And what God was doing is he was working with his daughter, Tammy. And as a result of that extra year, there was a reconciliation there. And so when he got out, he had a family. And so don't you start, because you're going to make me cry. Mr. Young got out, and God blessed him again because he released him at a time when employers were desperate for somebody that wanted to work. So he got a job at Roper Company up north in the north part of the state, and he passed probation. He's already had one promotion. He has just been approved for a home loan, and he is looking for a property up there now. I mean, it's just, this was him when he trained Abby. This was him when he trained Troy. And this was just another picture there. And then I want to get down. These are just some of the training teams over the years. This was his very first dog, Edith. Now, I don't even think I can tell you this because you'll be sobbing and you'll make me cry, but I'll tell you privately about this story because God used this dog. Well, I'll tell you because I think men will cry if they hear this story. So we don't want men to cry. This story is sweet. This inmate, Joe, he was not a trainer, but he lived in a dog dorm, and his son, Nathaniel, as you can see, was a disabled child. And Nathaniel grew up with the family dog. And at age 16, and Nathaniel's now 18, the dog was 16 years old, and the dog passed away. And Nathaniel just went into himself, stopped speaking, just quit. And Joe asked me if I would consider adopting one of our dogs to an inmate's family. Of course, I'm just going to judge everybody the same. So I said, have him put in an application. Well, it was a great family. His brother's a veterinarian. Nathaniel's being raised by grandma and grandpa. They bring him to visit. So what we arranged with the warden, Nathaniel's birthday was coming up. So grandma and grandpa are going to bring him for his birthday. You're going to do it again. Grandma and grandpa are going to bring him for his birthday on the pretext of visiting with daddy. And we made arrangements to go to the visitation area, and the warden gave us all permission to be there because I wanted to capture this. This was just so sweet. And so they would normally be on opposite sides of the windows, as you can see. These are those things with the phones. So all of a sudden, here comes Joe walking Jasper, our dog. And immediately, Nathaniel goes over to see Jasper. And he gives him a kiss. And he spoke for the first time and said, I love you, Jasper. For the first time in like over a year, he hadn't said a word. And now he's thanking daddy. And there's grandma. So, you go into this thinking it's to help the dogs, but boy, you come out of it realizing that God has just done a mighty work in this little piddly program to bless so many lives. So Jasper had a pretty great life. They are a family that goes out to rest, and they live in a walking town where there's restaurants. Jasper was like living like a king. And Joe got out probably about 3 months later. He was released, and so he's reunited with his son. Trying to get to, Aaron, help me out here. I wanted to get to the end of the, I went through everything, and I'm looking for the ones of the current ones of Mr. Young. And there's Mr. Young today, a free man enjoying pups. and he'll always enjoy pups. And there he is with his daughter Tammy and his lady friend. I told him, I said, when am I coming up for the wedding? But I think there probably will be one in the future. It is really wonderful to see. And he's been such a great example for the other guys to know that there is life after being incarcerated, that you can get out of prison, do your time, and then be a responsible citizen, and people will forgive. So what else can I say? So it's been an amazing ride. The trainers do a great job in a difficult place. It is not easy. It's not easy staying out of trouble in prison. It's not easy. There's a lot of resentment there. There's people that work there that want this place to be a warehouse, and they resent having inmates rise above. There's a lot of inmates that resent it because the bar gets raised. But then there's an awful lot of others who appreciate the dogs. And I think that the dogs do a service not only for the inmates and their trainers, but also a lot of staff, because it's stressful to work in a place like that. So, you know, it's, I think you guys quit at 1. Okay. Does anybody have any questions they would like to ask about the program? Yes, ma'am.
Do you have, so the inmates that get out, do any of them come back to you to adopt some of these dogs?
As a matter of fact, they have. Mr. Ridley is, he got out, he actually adopted Abby. He got out, and what I tell these guys is, you need a place that's yours, a job that you've passed probation on, and then they can apply. And so he did, and he waited a year where he's got himself a little mobile home on 6 acres up in is it Lafayette up there? Yeah, Lafayette. And I talked to his boss personally, and he was in good standing after a year. And so I took Abby up there, and he sends us updates all the time. Everything's good. And yeah, and then we have the parents of one of the young guy that I had a young kid in there. He's only 23 years old. And he fell in love with Roscoe. Yeah, trying to remember that. He fell in love with Roscoe. That was it. He and Mr. Young worked together. And all he would talk about when his parents came or called was Roscoe. Roscoe. The mom said, we're going to have to adopt this dog, or else we're not going to have a conversation with our son. So they adopted Roscoe, and he is there. Grant left the prison actually a couple of years ago, and he's in a prison closer to home now, so mom and dad don't have to drive 4 hours one way to visit him, which they did every single weekend. I told him, you have no idea how blessed you are, Grant, that you have a mom and a dad who will come all the way down here every single weekend just to see you. He says you need to do the right thing for them. And he was partnered with Mr. Young, and they really helped each other because they were both in for the same charge. And Grant has a life sentence too, but I'm hoping that he won't have to serve all of that. But anyway, yeah, that, and then there's been a couple of others. I'm pretty particular about any adopter, and I drill them and grill them and frisk them and whisk them, and because I want to make sure that we do right for these dogs, and I owe that to my trainers too, because they give everything to these dogs. I mean, they give everything to these dogs, and I want to do the very best job that I can to make sure that when they leave that place, they're going to be in a good home for the rest of their lives, that they're going to be cared for properly. And our adopters sign a contract that they're going to keep us updated with pictures and updates, because that really gives these guys the motivation and the encouragement they need to keep going when times are tough. And I was just telling you this morning, times are tough this morning. I mean, I almost didn't make it here with her because they had a breakout. I don't know what these guys are thinking. You cannot climb a 15-foot fence with razor wire on top. I mean, what were they thinking? But they popped the door in the J building to put food in, and a big crowd of them came busting out. And I don't know what they thought they were going to do, but everything just locks down, and you know, the pepper spray comes out, and I couldn't even get back to get her. So we just made it by the hair on our chinny chin chin this morning. And I must admit that if an officer had stopped me for speeding, I'd have had to take that ticket. Yes, sir, I'll sign right here. Can I go now? But we did make it. And and we're in good form there. So, but they, they do. And so I'm very careful to do the best job that I can for the dogs and for my trainers. And so, any other questions?
How many dogs do you have up for adoption now?
There is I think there's 5 of them when you get back to the, whoop, there it is. These are the adoptable dogs right now. We've got Sissy, Trixie, Rico, Oakley, and Darla. The newest dog in our program is Lexi. I just brought her in about 3 weeks ago. Her story was, every dog has a story. She was in really bad shape. One of the officers at the prison, a nice officer, one of the nice ones that really goes out of her way to help the dogs and the trainers, which is why I stepped up. She took a dog from somebody who was being kind of abused. And if she had known better, she would have realized that dog was pregnant, but she's really not that savvy. And the woman said, oh, she had puppies and everything, blah, blah, blah. Well, she had not had puppies. And so it wasn't long before she had a litter of puppies. And here's this poor woman with this dog and 6 puppies. And she was pretty desperate. And anyway, to make a long story short, I took the puppies and the dog, and she had severe heartworms, took care of all of that, got all that treated. I actually had her boarded for almost 4 months while that happened. Our shelter and Oconee Regional Humane Society stepped up and got homes for the puppies. So they were good. And I just fell in love with Lexi. This dog is so sweet. She has the sweetest little spirit. And I just promised her that you will never see the inside of a shelter. So as soon as we got the heartworms done, I snatched her and she's in. And so she's in the faith and character building with Mr. Curlin, who's one of our newer trainers. And she's doing great. She's just a wonderful dog. So I try to keep it at a total of 7, counting Chloe. So I keep them 2 in JC, 2 in EC, and 2 in EB. I don't get enough time there. They don't give me that much time, and I need to take care of things and, make sure that the dogs get trained and the guys know what they're doing. So if I can keep it that. I've had as many as 9, when the shelter's in a bind and it's like this dog's going to die, we just make room. And but try not to let that happen on a regular basis because it's really hard to maintain that many. So anything else? Yes, sir.
So how's it organized? You have these dogs that are at a shelter that are placed with inmates at the Baldwin County Jail, and they train them, and then they, from there, place them with adopted families?
Almost. It's
Almost.
Riverbend Correctional Facility. This is a
Okay.
prison, this medium
Gotcha.
security prison. And yes, they do. Yeah, so I work with they have a rescue and adoption coordinator at the shelter. And she and I work together to pick the dogs that are best. I mean, there's some dogs that can't come into an environment like that. German Shepherds are not good in that environment because they become guarding. I mean, if they're there too long, they start guarding their trainer from the officers. And, I've actually had Cole had to come out before I really was ready for him. The black German Shepherd that I had showed you up here before, because he started standing in front of his trainer and going to take care of anybody that approached him. So, we can't have that. So I don't bring guardian breeds in there anymore for that reason, because that's very stressful for those dogs because they're watching out. You got 1,500 inmates in this prison, and it's constant. So I need to get dogs that that have pit bulls are the best dogs for this program because they just love everybody. Darla's bomb-proof, nothing phases her. Chloe's bomb-proof, nothing phases her. So but anyway, that generally speaking, yes, that's right. We have adopted out 64 dogs as of last week when Billy went up to Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And I didn't see that one in here. I put that one in here too. Oh, there he is. Billy's on the left and Jada is on the right. Jada's the one that Stacy adopted back in 2017. She was our little Roddy. She's 10 years old now. Billy's 8. And you can see they're buds already. They're ready to be friends. So anyway, anything else? Thank you so much.
liking, and those are handmade by Mr. Greg Blakely in the back
Oh my
there.
gosh.
And we're gonna have you sign this book that's, if you could sign it, and we're gonna donate this to the local library in Chloe's office. Awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Can I get a picture of Chloe with a few of you so I can take that to her trainer?
Absolutely.
This is so helpful when they get to see, when I'm trying to explain things. So anybody willing?
All right, if there are no other announcements before everybody goes for the dog, because I'm gonna be there. All right. Thank you all for being here. Have a great week.